Okay, so Bezras Hashem, tonight we're going to be continuing with our series of shirim on Rabbi Nachman and the possibility of joy. But we're going to make a small detour, which is an unexpected shir, but it's certainly a shir that's going to bring us towards exactly where we need to be, Bezras Hashem. Now, tonight's shir was supposed to be about Rabbi Nachman and the Nekuda of Bina, as we're going to see from the writings of Rabbi Nosson and Rav Avram ben Rav Nachman, as well as Rav Itchemeyer Morgenstern Shlita. There's a certain emphasis of Rabbi Nachman's Avodah and the path that Rabbi Nachman clears for us that is very much makusher to the olam of Bina, to the world of tshuva, to the world of transformation and fixing from within brokenness itself, the capacity of the lower level to reveal something even higher than the higher level. And we're going to see how that's going to animate the entire mahalach of simcha for Rabbi Nachman, because as we're going to see from the writings of the Zohar HaKadosh and the Mekubalim, in particular the Leshem and the Emek HaMelech and the Ari, that Bina, even though it's the place of the origins of severity and the origins of constriction, Ani Bina li Gevura, as we know, that Bina is the bridge that bridges the upper 3 spheros with the lower 7 spheros, and therefore it has to contain within itself those two oppositional powers of the Rachamim Rabim of the upper world, as well as the harsh judgments of the lower world, symbolized by the fact that Bina, the shame representative of Bina, is the shame Havaya, which represents Rachamim Rabim, pure goodness and the grace and compassion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yet nevertheless, the nekudos, the vowelization that emerges through the enunciation of that word, expressive of expression outwards, is the nekudos of the Shem Elokim, which is the place of dinim. And it's specifically Bina that straddles the fence between severity and kindness and compassion, or joy and sadness, that is capable of being the birthplace of simcha, as we're told, Eim habanim smecha, that Bina is that womb of simcha. But before we go there, we're going to make a detour upon our path, and we're going to encounter and we're going to meet Rabbi Nachman on his way to visit the holy Tana, the Tana Eloikai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Meron. Now, it's a very interesting tale that we're going to be looking at. This is a Maisa, the Maisa of the Pegisha, of the encounter of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov and the Neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his spiritual teacher, that tzaddik Yesod Olam who Rabbi Nachman drew so much from, as we're going to see explicitly. Now, there was a tale that was told over in whispers through the Mashpiyei Breslov, and always referred to as something that was heard mipela ozen. Now, in the history of Breslov, there is textual censorship, in particular with regards to the Sefer Chaim Maharan. There were certain things taken out so that the machlokas against Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson would be quiet, and there were certain teachings in there that could be misused by those who wanted to abuse the concept of Breslov and the concept of those who follow the Tzaddik Emes. But rarely do we find mipi hashmua. We find things that were not written down at all, but given over from mouth to ear. Because with regards to writings by Rabbi Nachman, there's a number of different types of writings. There is the writings that we engage in to understand the life of Rabbi Nachman, Chayei Maharan, Sichos Haran. Then there's the Neshama of Rabbi Nachman, Likutei Maharan. And then there's the Sefer Haganuz, which is the book that was written but hidden. And then there's the Sefer HaNisraf, which is the book that was burnt. And then there's the books that haven't even been written. But to find Mipela Ozen without any real textual evidence supporting it prior to its emergence is a mashahu that's unique in the annals of the history of Breslov. And the first place that we have an exposure to this Maisa, there were hints to it in Chayei Maharan, there were hints to it in Shivchei Maharan, as Rav Simark points out that this is nothing new. But the real place that we find this is in Shalos and Shuvos Shaarei Tzedek from Rav Gedalia Koenig. Rav Gedalia Koenig, the Talmud of Rav Avram ben Rav Nachman, who was the son of Rav Nachman Tolchiner, who was the Talmud Mufak of Rabbi Nosson, who was the Talmud Mufak of Rabbi Nachman. Rav Gedalia Koenig, one of the greatest Mashpiyei Breslov that we've had in the last hundreds of years, he wrote a book of Shalos and Shuvos, and in Tshuva Tesvav, It's a letter that he actually wrote to an American mashpia, Rav Gedalia Fleer. And this letter that Rav Koenig wrote to Rav Gedalia Fleer in 1960 is really the first time that we have a textual expression of this experience, this Maisa of Rabbi Nachman and his encounter with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Meron. Prior to that, what we know is that the path that Rabbeinu took to get to Eretz Yisrael, that he was Moser Nefesh for, which my brother Josh Rosenfeld has given a number of beautiful shirim on. But this path to get to Eretz Yisrael was everything that Rabbeinu wanted to do in his entire life. And we're told in Shivchei Haran, in Os Yud Tes, as follows, that they rented donkeys and they traveled to all of the different caves. And when they arrived at the cave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Aze b'nei ha'neurim asku b'tfilah b'limud hazoyer ka'asher pokad aleim hu zachornu lebracha. Rabbi Nachman ensured that there would be children there, young children who were davening and reading the Zohar throughout the time that Rabbi Nachman entered into the Ma'ara of Rashbi. Umimenu lo ra'u shum davar, but from Rabbi Nachman we did not see anything whatsoever. Rak haya sameach ad ma'oid. Rather, he was incredibly, incredibly joyous. B'chol eis ba etzel ha'isha haya ima v'amar lo, ashrecha, ashrecha. And Rabbi Nachman would move to and fro, and then he would come to the person who came with him, and he would say, ashrecha, ashrecha. U'balayla hatlech mecheder l'cheder, and at night Rabbi Nachman was going from room to room in Meron. The Hisiro samlo mazohar b'chayotze. And he kept warning the children to continue saying Zohar. V'hu ba'atzmai lo amar klum. But he himself said absolutely nothing. But rather, he kept walking to and fro, singing to himself, and he was in an incredible state of joy, ad or hayom, until the morning light emerged. And when the sun arose, Rabbi Nachman put on his talis and tefillin, and he davened for a number of hours. And when a person looks at that ketta in Shivchei Haran and Os Yud Tes, we find the number of v'chules, continue, etc., which implies, as the Mechakrim have pointed out, that there was a certain element of censorship that took place there. And we have from Rav Gedalia Koenig in his letter to Rav Gedalia Fleer, this remarkable pagisha, this remarkable encounter of the neshama of Rabbi Nachman with the neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which will be'ezras Hashem help us understand just a little bit about the avodah of simcha that Rabbi Nachman came to bring down into the world that would not be possible without Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The story goes as follows, and one of the interesting things about the story is that it was written originally in Aramaic. It was written in the language of the Zohar. It was written in that Aramaic language which we discussed last time that we had a shir, is the avodah of Targum. And that avodah of Targum, which Rabbi Nachman says explicitly in Sichos Haran, that Rashbi was mitaken, the lashon of Targum. Rashbi clarified that language of translation to such an extent through the work of the Zohar that any language of translation can illuminate the soul. And we said that translation is not translation. Translation means the descent away from the light of the face into that darkened space where the original language is no longer clarified for us, as Rabbi Nachman points out in the 19th teaching. And it's that place of slumber and terdema and unconsciousness and smallness and stuckness with the smell of death. And it's specifically out of that place of Targum that the light of the Zohar emerges, out of that Ma'aras Tzurim. And it was the koyach of Rashbi that came to be metaken the lashon of Targum. And so it's no surprise that when we find Rabbi Nachman describing his encounter with the neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Meron, B'Meron, in the Ma'aras Tzurim Asher Amadata, in that place where Rashbi is buried, it's no wonder that it's in the language of Targum, because the whole inyan of the relationship between Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the avodah of Targum, is the avodah of teaching us how to see within terdema itself, within darkness itself, within concealment itself, the light that is burgeoning, the light that is sown for the tzaddikim, that or zarua letzaddik uliyishlev simcha, that light that is sown for the tzaddikim and for the straightness of the heart, it gives birth to simcha. What does it mean that a light is sown? A light is sown means it has to be dug deep into the ground. It has to be unseen. It has to be invisible. It has to remain invisible. It has to gestate. It has to germinate within itself. It has to break apart, as our tzaddikim tell us, in order for that light to emerge outside of the ground in a new revealed type of way. And it's only those tzaddikim who understand the process of gestation, the process of that light being hidden prior to its emergence onto the scene. We're told from the famous Chalom of the Or Zarua, the Rishon, who said he didn't know how to spell the name Akiva. He didn't know, for the sake of Gittin, how to spell Rabbi Akiva's name. Again, Rabbi Akiva, the Rebbe of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Akiva, the person who saw the Chorbanos of the world, and he was able to laugh and say that this is the biggest siman that Simcha is going to emerge out of here. Rabbi Akiva, whose colleagues looked at death, and Rabbi Akiva laughed and he said, but don't you see the sweetness that emerges afterwards? Rabbi Akiva, who in the moment of the deepest pain in the world was capable of expressing Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Rabbi Akiva, who learned this all from his Rebbe, Nachman Gamzu. Rabbi Akiva, who learned this light from his Rebbe, who said that Kol Ma Da'avid Rahman L'Tava, that every imaginable thing that takes place in this world is for good. How, why, what, where, we have absolutely no idea whatsoever. Rabbi Akiva himself was told shtaik. Rather, Rabbi Akiva was the birthplace of that halacha. When Moshe Rabbeinu encounters Rabbi Akiva and he says, Zu Torah v'zu schara, you're going to tell me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that this is how it goes? You're going to tell me that this is what it's supposed to look like? And Hashem doesn't offer Moshe Rabbeinu an answer. He says, Shtaik kach Allah b'machshava. Silence yourself, because this is how it emerged in my unfathomable and infinite desire for the creation of the world. Rabbi Akiva, who was able to understand that, the Rebbe of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that Or Zarua L'Tzadik V'Lusha Lev Simcha, which is Sofei Tevos Akiva, from where the Or Zarua learned to name his sefer. The story goes as follows, that Rabbi Nachman came to the town of Meron. In that moment, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Nachman, came to the cave of Rashbi. And when Rabbi Nachman entered into that cave, he came in with all of the sweet odors of the world, with all of those smells of Gan Eden. The same scent that emerges out of Gan Eden when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down at Chatzos Laila to be mishta'asheya, to take pleasure and to find engagement with those neshamos of the tzaddikim who get up for Tikkun Chatzos. Now this joy that emerges, the Zohar talks about so often by Tikkun Chatzos, it's the joy of anticipating the morning light prior to its emergence. Those who are able to awaken themselves even in darkness and remind themselves that light is burgeoning. It's specifically in that place that those sha'ashuim take place. And Rabbi Nachman says that was the type of joy that entered in with me when I went into the chamber of Rashbi. V'huaru kol ha'olamos, and all of the worlds were illuminated, v'yeshenim hakadoshim shalamara hakadosha hisayru, and all of the neshamos of all of the tzaddikim who were waiting for this time, they stirred and they awoke. And a voice emerged, a strong voice emerged, and he says, what is the name of this holy tzaddik, Yesod Kol Olamos? Permission has been granted to him to illuminate the candles, the holy flames, within the chamber of the holy king, who has entered in now into this cave, this holy cave. Blessed is he, may you come in peace. Who is it that doesn't care about themselves? Who is it that doesn't think about themselves whatsoever? Who is it whose only desire is to elevate the Shekhinah that has fallen down to the dust and to elevate it back up back to its beloved, back to that supernal place of unity? Who is it that knows the cure for the princess who is lost? Who knows how to cure the illnesses? Who knows how to cure the pain? Who is it? Who is this tzaddik who just entered, who knows how to speak calmly to the heart of the Shekhinah, to the heart of the princess, to comfort her, to heal all of that pain, and all of that damage? Who is it who knows how to cover over those wounds? To heal those wounds that are so difficult to heal for eternal health. Who is it that has come without a care for themselves, without a care or desire for pleasure in this world? Ana Rabbeinu v'Amar, Rabbi Nachman announces and he says, and his voice heard, and we see this scream of Rabbeinu elsewhere. Rabbeinu sha'ag b'kol gadol ein shem yesh ba'olam klal. Anna Rabbeinu va'amar b'kol gadol. Rabbeinu announced with a great thundering voice. And over here we see as well, Anna Rabbeinu va'amar, Rabbi Nachman says, and his voice was heard throughout the land, Anihu shenachnasti achshav v'mara hakadoisha hazu. I am the one who has entered into this holy cave. Ani Shemi ben Nachman ben Simcha. I, Nachman, the son of Simcha, V'Fega, and the son of Fega. I have come from the Zerah, from the line of the holy Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. Shemiyuchasu ba me'zera HaKadosh al David HaMelech Mashiach. I am the one, I, the child, the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the descendant of David Melech Mashiach. I am the one who has entered into the cave. I am the one who has grabbed hold of Shemayim and Aretz. I am the one who is engaged in comforting HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah in this world by teaching the Jewish people how to move forward. I am the one who has healed that Bas Melech. I am the one who has the strength to remove all of the stings even after they've emerged. I am the one who has the power to get rid of that poison that surges through the veins of Klal Yisrael. I am the one who spends time strengthening the weak ones. I am the one who denies the power of the snake. I am the one who draws Bina, like we said, into the depths of the hearts of the Jewish people to teach them how to be joyous, to teach them how to strengthen themselves, to teach them to do tshuva even when tshuva is an impossibility. I am that one. I am the one who emerges with simcha and chedva in the world to complete the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I am that one. Ani hu shekulam yeshnam bi. I am the one who everybody has shaychus to. Like we said in all of our shirim, that b'sof yamim everyone will be Breslov. It doesn't mean that everybody will know Rabbi Nachman. It doesn't mean that everybody will learn Rabbi Nachman. But it means that the only way to survive is when your avodas Hashem is al pi the klalim that Rabbeinu brought into this world. To have the heart be broken, to have infinite hope in spite of all darkness, to have joy in spite of everything. To allow ourselves to vacate that need for knowledge and to abandon rationality and throw ourselves into a meaningless and chaotic faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu beyond anything. Those kochos we all need. I am that one, says Rabbi Nachman. Va'az kam Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. At that point, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gets up. He's no longer leaving it to everybody else. V'sha'al she'ela. And he asks a question, Meron. The word of Meron is Meron. Who here is engaged in such simcha? Ron me lashon rina. Meron. Who has the ability to be this joyous? Who is this person? Ana Rabbeinu v'Amar, Rabbi Nachman announces, Ani Ron. I am Ron. I am the one who is drawing this simcha into the world. Almost as if to say, I am the one who can teach you how to be besimcha. Meron, Meron. Who is the one who comes here with their joy? And Zok Rabbi Nachman, Ani Ron. I am the one who has come here with my joy. And all of the neshamas of the tzaddikim came down, and they saw this encounter with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Nachman. And the Maisa continues with all of the shvachim, very much like a kapitel from the Zohar Kadosh. And it continues, and it talks about how Rabbi Nachman takes out his kinor, takes out his harp, and he begins to sing that song of Amunah that could only emerge out of darkness. He begins to sing that song that is not pashut, that is not singular, that is not doubled, that is not kaful, that is not tripled, that is not meshulish, but rather the fourfold song, the song that descends one level after another to the lowest imaginable place, to this world of Asiya, and reveals that the deepest song imaginable can only emerge out of that place, can only emerge out of that fallen place of the world of Asiya. And the world is on fire, and everybody is joyous. And then the Maisa continues, and it says as follows. And in the midst of the joy of Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Shimon, there was heard a sad sound for a moment. A sad chord emerged out of that harp. A difficult chord, a painful chord emerged out of that heart. Ba'az Rabbeinu HaKadosh, not Tabiyadav Hakinor, and he placed that harp down for a second when that sad tune emerged. The Sha'al HaRashbi, and Rashbi asks, as Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rashbi asks Rabbi Nachman, what was that? What was that sad chord that I heard in my ears? In the midst of all of the simcha, what was that sadness I heard? The Amar Loi Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And Rabbi Nachman says to Rabbi Shimon, Hakol hazeh sheshamata, this voice that you heard, Hu koilam shel elu tzirei hatzoin, it's the voice of those young children, Sha'aroa shalahem hitcha b'mehem, and their shepherd has left them and has concealed themselves from them, V'ta'u b'sadeh, And they wandered in the field, ubikshu mayim laharvos simoinam, and they asked for water to satisfy their thirst, v'loy matzu, and they couldn't find it. V'halchu v'hitpazru b'midvar, and they scattered themselves in the desert. Ben chayus hapera ze'evim v'nemarim v'chulei, and they scattered themselves in the desert, surrounded by the wild beasts of the field. V'hiziku lahem, and some were damaged. Mayhem achlu, and some were eaten. Mayhem shavru atzvaisehem, and some of them their bones were broken. U'ma'atim heim she'etzlichu levorech lahagia l'gedaru shalahem, and very few of them will be successful in returning back to their chambers of peace. Af heim latzu manayach, and even those who return will not find comfort. Va'al zeh heim et mish'avim, and because of this they're screaming out, Roya, Roya hane'eman, our leader, our faithful leader. Ad matai tazoi v'oisam v'chule v'chule v'chule. How long will you disperse us? How long will you let us be lost? That's where that sad voice comes from. Va'az ba'oso sha'a huskim beinehem. And at that moment it was agreed between the two of them, Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Nachman, Shebe ikvisa de Mashiach, in the time of the ikvisa de Mashiach, kishit tiskaber chas v'shalom sitra achra, when sitra achra, when the darkness and concealment of the world overwhelms, when confusion overwhelms, v'tispashet lebilti tate lavo litkabet tzatzione kadosh b'uman b'meir shoshana, and there'll come a time in the end of days where chaos will ensure that nobody is able to go to Uman, where nobody will be able to come close to that tzaddik. And it's not a difficult thing to imagine in our time. It's not a difficult thing to imagine a year where people couldn't go, where people were unable to go, those who wanted to go. That there will come a time in Ikvas of the Mashiach when a person won't be able to go. And Rashbi says, I will be mishtadel. I will be the one who puts in effort. To gather all of those young children in my holy shadow, to accomplish the mitzvah of welcoming guests, in your merit, with joyous and glad faces, to eat and to drink and to rest, to make sure that they have everything that they need. And these tefillos that emerge in my place in Meron, says Rabbi Shimon to Rabbi Nachman, these tefillos will bring us back to that place of the Nachal Nevei Makor Chachma, that place of renewal, that place where we can draw faith even when faith is gone. Makor HaChachma HaKadosha, that source of supernal wisdom, Ad ki yashuv yarcharamenu uki ma'isa nisanu yismachenu. And at that point, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will return us, and He will gladden us like the days of our subjugation. As the Ramchal teaches us, He will show us how the difficulty itself gave birth to the Simcha. V'ayin ba'ayin nira b'shuv Hashem Tzion. And one will see with their own eyes the return of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Tzion. That pasuk that the Rebbe Ravit Shemayr Shlita uses at the end of every drasha, ayin ba'ayin yirush Hashem b'Tzion. An eye will see it. We won't have to hear it. We won't have to believe it. We will see it clearly. And there'll be a joy that has not emerged in the face of a Kadosh Baruch Hu since the time of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And in the morning when the sun arose, the Saimu Tfilasam, and everybody finished their davening, Rabbi Nachman wanted to leave the Ma'ara, and everybody followed him. And everybody gave him gifts. And everybody gave him the blessing of peace to bring us to that place. Now this Maisa is an incredibly, incredibly powerful Maisa because it's the story of Rabbi Nachman. It's the story of the demand to find joy, the belief in finding joy, and then suddenly that joy is interrupted by a small, sad note. That joy is interrupted from that sadness that emerges in that cave in Meron. And Rabbi Shimon says, what is this? Where does this come from? And Rabbi Nachman says that sadness is because of the yearning and the thirst that people are going to have to find the Nakud of the Tzaddik, to find that light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their lives. And that yearning and that toil to find that light, the willingness to descend into the deserts, the willingness to be attacked, the willingness to be broken in all manners of brokenness, and to be steadfast in our faith, that's what will give birth to the ultimate song. That's what will give birth to that ultimate song of simcha that comes out through the unification of the Torah of the Zohar HaKadosh, of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. That person where there's no sadness and there's no darkness, along with Rabbi Nachman, the Nachal Nevei Makor Chachma. Rabbi Nachman famously opens up the Sefer Likutei Meron with a very interesting teaching about Rabbi Shimon. It's called L'chu Chazu Mifalos Hashem Asher Sham Shamos Baretz, based on the pasuk that says, "Come and see the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has placed destruction in the land." Shamos, destruction. The Malbim, Rashi, what does shamos mean? Shimamon, emptiness, nothing. Zaktim Aforshim, the word that defines shamos, of destruction and desolation, is shemama, shin mem mem hey, which tzaddikim have told us can also spell out sham ma. There is ma. When I look at something, I say, what is this? Ma is the gematria of 45, kiyadua. The Shem HaMeforish of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yud, K, Vav, K. That's shemama. I look around and I see ma. What is this? Is there any purpose here? Is there any meaning here? This shimaon, this confusion and chaos. So Zakt Rabbi Nachman on this pasuk, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one who comes along and says, when the Chevra get together in Kerem Shebiyavne, Kerem Shebiyavne, Yavne is the same osios as Bina. Kerem is the Bechina of the vineyard. Yayin is Makusha to Gvuros. It's that place that joy and sadness operate in unison. That intensity emerges within the body of a person through the imbibement of wine that gives birth to two paths in front of the person. Either it will be a yayin hamasameach, a gladdening wine, or a yayin hamashaker, or an intoxicating wine. And it's specifically in that Kerem Shebiyavne, in that place of Bina, that the Tanaim come along and they see Gevuros and they say, La'asid tishkachich Torah meYisrael, the Jewish people are going to forget about the Torah. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gets up and he says, Lo tishkach mi pizarim. It will never be forgotten. Now, what does forgetfulness mean? Forgetfulness is death. Forgetfulness is when things fall away from the light of the face. Forgetfulness is when the aspect of life is taken away from something. Forgetfulness is when something is no longer active, no longer present, and a person is convinced that it's gone. But it comes along Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and say, nothing is gone. Nothing is truly gone. And if it appears gone, it's just because there's a residual light that's present that needs to be dug deeply into to reveal that it's always been present. And that koyach of Rabbi Shimon that comes along and says, there's never going to be forgetfulness. In fact, the very nature of forgetfulness itself is what will give birth to the renewal of Torah, because people will be thirsty and desiring the light of the Torah. And Rabbi Shimon says, L'chu chazu mifalais Hashem. Come and see the wonders of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It appears that things are broken. It appears that things are forgotten and desolate, but in truth, there's a light that is sown within it. How, where, what, why, in what sense, how could it be possible? Rabbi Nachman told us a long time ago, in the same way that Rashbi taught us, Tachlis hayediyah shalaneda. The apex of the Jewish experience is the full recognition that I know absolutely nothing whatsoever. And anytime I think I know anything, it just means that it's a hakdama for me to come and remember that I know absolutely nothing. And Rabbi Nachman says in countless places that the I don't know of today is nothing in comparison to the I don't know of tomorrow. And when Jews are forced to say I don't know, when Jews are forced to say ma, when Jews are forced to say I have absolutely no idea, it's a hisgalus of the emunah that is me'al haseichel. It's a revelation of that deep-seated faith that does not need truth or validation to support itself. Emunah is so true, it doesn't need to be true. It's that place of tachlis hayediyah shalaneda. And it's specifically in that place that we're zoichet to the geula. It's specifically Rabbi Nachman who can say, Ani Ron, I am the one who is going to find simcha in this world. Rabbi Shimon asks, Meron, who could be happy? Who could be singing? And Rabbi Nachman comes along and says, Ein shum yesh ba'olam klal, Ani Ron, I am the one who's going to teach you to be b'simcha. There's one other place where Rabbi Nachman darshans that same teaching, that same pasuk of L'chu chazu mifalais Hashem asher sham shamos ba'aretz. Because Chazal have an incredible teaching on this. The pasuk says, "L'chu chazu mifalais Hashem asher sham shamos ba'aretz." Come and see the desolation and the destruction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has sown within the land. And Chazal and Bechoros, in only the way that Chazal can deliberately misread the psukim, They say, Al tikra shamos, don't read destruction and desolation, but rather shemos, names, specific things that we're meant to engage with. When a person looks at the world and they see shemama, shamma, a question of what is this? Where is it coming from? How could it be? What a person needs to find there is the Or Hashem, the light of the name, which says that no, this is specific. It's something real that needs study. It's something that can teach us something. There is no desolation that is without purpose. Everything is filled with purpose of the proper name. Everything can convey a teaching of the tachlis to an individual, no matter how small or no matter how large. And Rebbe Nachman darshans this pasuk in the 36th teaching in the second volume of Likutei Meron, where it says, L'chu chazum nifalei Hashem asher sham shamas baretz. And what Rebbe Nachman says there in that teaching is that there is nothing in this world that happens by happenstance. There is nothing that appears so dark and so difficult that it cannot be present to teach us the tachlis of Shabbos, to teach us the light of Shabbos where there is no sadness, to teach us that light that the Zohar HaKadosh says is the light of Rashbi. Rashbi does Shabbos, Shabbos does Rashbi. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the Bechin of Shabbos, and Shabbos is the Bechin of Rabbi Shimon. And it's specifically when we look at desolation in the land, when we see the Shemama, when we see that Shamma, that we have the koyach of digging deeper into the tachlis, digging deeper into what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me in this world? What do I need to do to be mekusher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How can I speak to you, Hashem? How can I move even an inch closer to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How can I find just one more nekuda of menucha saneshev and yishuv adas in this world? It's specifically those questions of l'chu chazum ifalois Hashem asher sham shamos baretz. Look at the desolation, and Chazal say, don't look at desolation. See purpose. Find the names there. Find the things that are essential there. And Rebbe Nachman, just in a few of these Lashonos, are just so incredible. Rebbe Nachman says, we can't come to this darg of simcha. We can't come to this place of the tachlis, of seeing those proper names and everything that takes place, except by going through difficulty, except by going through that lowest level of the raglin, of the legs, of the walking and the running and the moving and the pushing. It's specifically lechu chazu. You have to walk and see it. You have to utilize the lowest element of what it means to be a human being. The tachlis hadir b'tachtayne mamish, the chayshach kaful u'mechupel, the hastara shebesoicha hastara. This world which is buried within the beten hanachash, as the Rashash tells us. It's specifically in that place of the raglin, of lechu chazu, Rabbi Nachman says, that a person will be capable of disclosing this. V'zehu lechu chazu, and this is what it means, come and see. Lechu daika, specifically walk. Hainu b'chinas haraglin, specifically the level of the legs, shehem klei ha'halicha, that are the vessels of walking. Gam heim yachazu mifalei Hashem asher sham shemos baretz. Even the lowest level, the legs, the lowest possible level, the lowest imaginable thing in the world, the legs themselves will disclose the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like the legless beggar in the tale of the Sheva HaBatlarim who has yet to arrive. That legless beggar who teaches us how to walk without walking, how to dance without dancing. Oy, and Rabbi Nachman continues and he says, and we should be able to say this with tears and sobbing. To cry and to yearn, and to desire and to beg, lefanav yisparach, in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When will we merit to see this? Shia lanu zeh hadas. To have this knowledge, when will it be, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we're capable of beholding your light within every element of this existence, from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high? And according to our low, diminished level in this time, the kulanu ein penenu yafos klal, and all of us are ugly and burnt and broken and sad and angry. We need you to be compassionate upon us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Litein lanu manhig roya ne'eman, to give us that roya ne'eman, that Rashbi, that Rabbi Nachman told Rashbi they're going to be crying for that. That's where that voice of sadness comes from. That hadracha, to be megalatas, how to see light in darkness. Litein lanu manhig sheyuchel lahayir banu yediyah, who has the capacity of revealing that knowledge within us, in order to serve you properly, in order to come to the tachlis. This nekuda of simcha, this nekuda of Rabbi Shimon, this Nakuda of the Tzafon, of the north, of Meron, who can be happy here? The north is very often associated with difficulty. Misafon tiftach hara. The north is where negativity emerges from. It's that side of the world that is concealed from the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, left open to the chitzonim, left open to doubts. But we're also told, Marav tuvcha shetzafanta l'reyacha. How great is the goodness that you hide away in the north for your beloved? How good is that goodness that will emerge specifically out of the place of Bina, specifically out of that place of concealment, specifically out of the northern sky of Eretz Yisrael? Meron, who can be joyous? Ani Ron, I can be joyous. Even in spite of everything, I can be joyous. Afal Pikein, I can find joy. The Zohar HaKadosh says as follows in Parsha Shlach, on Daf Kufayin Gimel Amid Beis. Mitzafon tiftach hara'a. From the north, the difficulty will emerge, negativity will emerge. Ubesafon machi, but the north will also erase it. Dimitema nafke kol dinan, v'chol gazirin kashin. Because it's specifically from the north that all difficult judgments and decrees emerge from. Ube shari kol eger tov. But that's also the place where all goodness is hidden. V'chol tivu dezamen kuchabrichu l'meihav liyisrael. And all of the goodness that stands at the ready for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal to the Jewish people. L'zimna da'asi krei. When that time arrives, a voice will come out. Kuchabrichu l'safon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will call forth to the north, that place of Meron, of who could be joyous. V'yemalei, and it will say, Bach yahavis kol tivu. You have all the goodness hidden within you. V'chol eger toiv lebnei desavlu kama bishin by ha'alma kedusha shmi. And my children who have suffered in this world, such suffering for the sake of my holiness, have igrin tavin yehaviskach. Give them those goodness, give them those gifts that are hidden by you. Avehu dichsiv, this is what the pasuk says in Yeshaya, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say to the north, give it to my children, give them what they deserve. Be'ezras Hashem, we should be zoicha. As we leave the light of Rashbi, we're still by Rashbi, everybody's still by Rashbi. And Keshem HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'kol, the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is for everybody, Kach Rashbi l'kol, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is for everybody, the Nekuda of Tzaddik is for everybody. In the same way that even Rabbi Shimon could say, Meron, who could be happy here? Who is this one who comes along and finds gladness? We can all say, because all Rabbi Nachman is doing is teaching us about the tzaddik within us, we can all announce, Ani Ron, I am the one who continues to be joyous. And Be'ezras Hashem, what we'll discuss next week, is the Nekuda of Bina that comes from that place that gives birth to the Avodah of Rabbi Nachman and Be'ezras Hashem.